In this video, I'm going to show you 3 different ways to find land. But just as important as that is checking out its viability. So at the end of this video, I have a free gift for you. So make sure you watch to the end. So who am I? I'm Jim J. Davidson. I'm a property developer. My company was formed in 2003 in terms of ground up property development, although I've been involved in the property industry since 1973 when I and my brother purchased a flat in the student area of Edinburgh. I'm also the author of this book, You a Property Developer. So hopefully you think that I am qualified to give you some advice on how to find off-market land. So let's get stuck in. So the first point is finding land through maps. Now there are several different maps that you can use. You can use Google Maps, you can use the local plan map, and you can use the planning portal maps. So let me just describe those 3. So the first one is Google Maps. Google Maps will give you a bird's eye view of an area, and you can look for infill sites within that. So you can look for where there's gaps within the current residential current residential areas, should I say. The second is the local plan map, which is a bit more useful, to be honest, because the local plan will designate boundaries where planning is likely to succeed. Now, within a local plan, and they'll have sort of like an imaginary line that goes around a settlement, whether that be a city or whether that be a small village or town. And within that, they will usually permit development. However, within that, also, they will have zoned certain areas for residential development and some for commercial development and supporting employment. That's not to say that you can't change it, and there's certain rules about what you can and can't do within that. But what you're essentially, again, looking for is you're looking for gaps where there is potential sites there. And then the third one is the planning portal. So this is where they will have a map. It will show current planning applications. It will go back depending on how far back it will go. Obviously, planning applications have been required since 1947, but they won't go back as far as that. But usually, some of them will go back to sort of like the 90s, I would say. So you will be able to see where there has been planning already been applied for, and whether it's been failed or whether it's been successful, and so that will give you some idea. So using a combination of those maps, you should be able to identify some sites. The second area, which I call boots on the ground, and we actually have one of the 17 courses that we have in our mastery program covers boots on the ground. So boots on the ground, essentially what that's about is getting out there and looking for sites. And so what you're looking for here is obviously you are looking for perhaps infill sites. You're looking for areas which might lend themselves to development. But you're also trying to look at what is not immediately apparent. So for instance, is there something that where you could change its use? And I'm not talking about converting a building, but for instance, is there a row of garages but they're dilapidated, they're not looked after, and perhaps the owner of those garages rents them all out. Now they have a decision of they need to refurbish them all at considerable expense, clearly, or would they be willing to sell that piece of land on, which you then could obtain planning permission on and build some residential properties. Dilapidated garages is actually quite a good thing, because it's usually within a residential area, so the likelihood of you actually gaining planning on it is very, very strong. But you're also looking for other different opportunities where you could perhaps develop out that site. So that's dilapidated garages, or should I say that's boots on the ground. The third is existing planning applications. So these fall into different categories. And again, you're wanting to go back and visit the local, your local planning authority's planning portal. And so if you just look under planning, you'll find that there's usually a portal there. The different councils have different systems. I have to say there's not a universal application throughout the country, but most adopt now an interactive type of planning portal. And what you're able to do there is look at newly submitted applications, because everybody who submits an application doesn't necessarily want to build out the site themselves. So you can look at new submitted applications and follow them, and the portal will usually allow you to track these. The second thing is you can look at recently approved planning applications. For the same reasons, they may not want to build them out. And you can look at a third area, which is failed applications, because what happens with failed applications is that when it fails, they have to list a criteria of why it's failed. And that doesn't mean to say that you will never get planning on that. Satisfy those conditions that it actually got failed upon, and you will get planning permission for that site, because they can't revisit and say, yes, now that we've satisfied those, there's this other condition that we think that this is not suitable for. They can't actually go back and revisit. They can only address the failed conditions. And if you address those, then you will gain planning permission. So that's the three areas. There are lots more. We actually have 50 different ways that you can find sites. But I just thought I would cover three. These are three of the most important ones, or certainly the significant ones. So at the beginning of the video, I said I had a free gift for you. And one of the most important things is that once you've identified a site, is checking out its viability. And we have a process to do that. But part of that process is what we call a site checklist. Now, I've got this here. We actually called it originally a plot checklist, but there's various items on here. So we talk about the initial viability of a site, and then we look at cost implications on the site. And so we have, between those two things, there are 23 items to check. And then there's things like utilities that you want to check. So we have 6 items there. Then there's planning considerations, and we have 14 areas there that you need to check for planning considerations. And this is all before you actually spend any money on professionals. And then ultimately you're going to want a legal check, and we have 14 different items on there. So what I would like to do is to give you a copy of this. Also, it comes along with a free video which will explain how to use this site checklist. So there'll usually be a link in the description below, or if you are watching this on one of our web pages, then there will be a button somewhere for you to be able to access that information. I believe this is a valuable tool, and I look forward to sharing this with you.